Hello, panelists and attendees and guests who will be watching this later. I'm so glad to have you on this conversation tonight, where we're going to be looking forward locally. My name is Brittany Allison, and the Bonita Democratic Council is thrilled to welcome Bonita Unified School Board member Greg Palatto, Dimas City Councilmember John Ebiner, and Mount SAC Board of Trustees representative Peter Hidalgo. And we are going to be having what I hope will be a really dynamic conversation. And it's mostly because I really like these representatiors that are on here with us tonight, and I really like my questions. So hopefully you do too. Well, those of you that are on with us tonight, if you do have any questions that come up in your mind while we're having this conversation, please drop those in the chat as soon as you think about it so you don't forget. I am going to save those questions until the end, unless there's like a burning clarifying question, and then we'll go ahead and jump in to take care of that. But what I'm just really excited is to get from these three representatives a bit of reflection of the year that they've seen their various boards go through, and then a whole lot of visioning of where we're headed, and how we can all come alongside to build that future, together. So for us to start, I'm going to have each of them go ahead and introduce themselves. Very, very briefly, who they are, what board they serve, and a bit of reflection of the year that they've just had. John, do you want to go ahead and start off, and then Greg, and then Peter? Does that sound good? Great. Oh, John, you're muted right now.
There you go. I'm John Ebiner, and I'm on the Dimas City Council. Veteran, I guess you could say, been there quite a few years. Reflecting on this past year, I guess it's inescapable that COVID-19 was probably the biggest challenge we had in the community, as so many people, I mean, for everybody, but for the city in particular, you know, our staffing, what kind of meetings we're going to have, our programs, events, all were impacted by COVID-19. So that was probably, to keep it brief, that was one of the main challenges. We did address it as best we could. So tried to keep City Hall open as much as possible, had some, you know, remote meetings. And then, you know, we created what we called Dimas Cares, which gave food to senior citizens. And by the end of the year, I guess we're flowing over to the science part here. We were able to put on a full-fledged Halloween and the Christmas extravaganza, which were both great successes. So, you know, that sounds on the city level. Obviously, throughout the community, there were thousands of quiet triumphs, you know, with kids, students, community members. And on a personal level, you know, got vaccinated, got boosted, started seeing the grandkids again, and that was pretty exciting. And lastly, one of my daughters, Beth, got married in December. So that was great.
That is awesome. Thank you for that, John. Greg, you want to take it away?
Sure. Welcome. I'm Greg Palatto. I live here in Laverne, about 2 blocks away from Grace Miller. Personally, I've been working as a school psych for about 20 years, currently down the street in Covina. I'm a representative to the Bonita Unified School Board, just got elected in 2020. It seems so long ago now. Who would have thought 2020 is a trilogy, right? But I've been really involved in my own school where I worked, and I've been in board meetings, at school board meetings for the last 10 years, and then nothing is like what it is since I got on. It's been nuts. I mean, if SNL makes a skit about school board meetings, you know you're living the good life. For the challenges, like what John said, COVID's been huge. It hit kids hard. My personal triumph is, even despite all the challenges in the every week we get some new updates on what's going on. We're still able to keep our focus on our kids. My personal triumph is, and the goal of Ryan Rand really was mental health, and we made a robust mental health. I guess that's my triumph and my victory so far. We have someone dedicated at each site. The high school has a whole wellness center. Kids could just kind of chill out, relax. They could talk to someone, they could do art, whatever they need at that moment. So I'm very proud of that because we achieve our kids academically, but if they're not in the right mindset, it doesn't combine. So I'm proud to be doing what I'm doing. I'm having a good time. Hope the next few years get a little bit better, but you know, it's great to serve our community.
Amen to that. Maybe it's just because the place that early education has in my heart, but you were on the front lines this past trilogy since 2020. And you too, Peter. Let's hear from you.
Thank you, Brittany, and what an honor to be invited, and thank you so much for being part with these amazing leaders, Councilman Ebiner and Board Member Pilato. You know, just really respect the great work that you guys do. And I too I was part of the wave that was elected in November 2020. And so this was my first full year on the board at Mount San Antonio College. Just out of curiosity, do we have any Mounties in the audience? Just a raised hand. Any Mount Sackers? If not, you know, Mount Sac is California's largest community college as far as single district. There's a larger district, LA Unified, or rather LA Community College District, but they have 9 campuses. We're a single campus with 60,000 students. And the pandemic has really impacted a lot of our learning and our classes. But for the most part, we are 80% back to normal. We're about 40% in person at Mount Sac, with the remaining in distance learning. A lot of our programs, I don't know if you know this, but we have the largest non-credit program, meaning these are the community not on campus, but these are within throughout our Mount Sac district. We're having classes on English as a second language, or seniors learning how to sew, or these are all non-credit classes that we offer throughout the community, not only in Laverne, San Dimas, but throughout our district. I'm honored to represent the areas of Laverne and San Dimas, South Glendora, and North Pomona. So I have about 150,000 residents who are part of my area, and was thrilled to be elected along with Greg on the ballot, and really appreciate Bonita support for my candidacy. I think the challenges that we've seen on campus have been just as what the councilman and the board member mentioned, and that is the impact that the COVID has had. We have seen with our students, we've had students sleeping in their cars on campus, and because they just were in desperate need of housing. They had no food. So we really mobilized quickly and set up, like many of you did, distribution centers for food. And we worked, our student services teams worked hard with multiple communities to try to house the unhoused. And, we really saw the impact that COVID was having, not only in the illnesses, but just the impacts of jobs. And so our job at Mount Sac was to try to retrain and give adults an opportunity to maybe, if they were laid off, find a new career. And so some of the programs that we immediately started were in healthcare. And that was one amazing way that we could pivot and help train, working with, Kaiser Permanente, with Pomona Valley Hospital, with San Dimas Community Hospital, among others, to try to see what were they in need of and preparing them. We also, as far as a victory, one of my passions, as I know that Matt And Greg know this, as does the councilman. I have the honor of mentoring some what we call at promise high schoolers. They're not at risk; they're at promise high schoolers in Pomona, and they have, we believe that we're supposed to give back and help those, but no, when you serve and give back, I'm the one who was transformed. All this to say that some of these boys that are fatherless, were just making bad decisions, and they were incarcerated. They were making bad choices, but when they graduated, if they could, they then could not find a job, and the stigma that incarcerated youth were had, or just now at this time they were adults, we were able to implement an amazing program called Rising Scholars. And Rising Scholars gives a second chance to those who were formerly incarcerated. We will hand walk them through how to apply at Mount SAC. We will help them get their classes that they need, because not everybody is into academics. They're maybe more into more vocational programs like welding or aeronautics, fixing airplanes at Cable or wherever. And we have been working with that, and we have about 120 formerly incarcerated adults. Believe it or not, a majority of them are females, which I would think they'd be more male, but that's just how it is today. And I think a lot of the guys are just trying to find work. But that is my victories. And we've been working with locally with Senator Connie Leyva, and who's chair of the Senate Education Committee, and she helped us get some state funding, and with the Office of Assemblyman Chris Holden. I think someone on this call might know him, but they have been very helpful in helping us get some funding for Rising Scholars at a number of community colleges around the state. So I'm really pleased with that victory. So Brittany, thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, of course. That's so huge. And here I forgot to start this meeting with Breathwork, and I already made a mistake. So can you join me in closing your eyes if you feel comfortable, and connecting with whatever part of you is closest to the ground. If you're sitting on a chair, feet are on the ground, just feel what is below you and allow your body to be grounded into what is below you. And then we're going to take 3 slow breaths, inhaling gratitude and presence, and exhaling anything that is bothering you at the moment. So please join me in breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Nice slow breath in. 1, 2, 3, and out. Letting your shoulders fall a little bit each time. Breathe in one more time. And exhale. Thank you so much for humoring me in that moment. My alert in my brain went off when Greg was talking about the mental health focus and how much assistance was needed through this period of the COVID trilogy. And the importance of breath is the thing that I have realized I need in order to show up. And the one thing I forgot to show, and I see your guys' hands, but I am going to ask that the audience type their questions into the chat box while they're thinking about them, or write them down, because we're going to do an audience Q&A at the end. If you have a clarifying question, then I can interrupt with that. But I really want to give our 3 panelists the time to talk about their big picture. And then we're going to take care of those specific questions at the end. Because yeah, we've had these big challenges. And as Peter showed, a lot of exciting opportunities to move forward. And I want to know, how are we moving forward as a community? What are we looking to on the horizon? What's coming? What's changing? What are these opportunities for improvement that these, years of shutdown have given us a time to reevaluate? So I'm going to ask that each of you, it doesn't need to be in a specific order unless you really prefer that, but I'm going to ask for each of you to give me a little bit of a vision of kind of where your board is headed. What are the exciting things that are coming? And also, what do we need to make sure to stay consistent on, because it's working and we're excited to get back to that. Do any of you feel led to jump in and start? Or do we want to keep the John, Greg, Peter round robin?
Well, I'll start
Go ahead.
this time anyway. Maybe I'll go second another time, but which would be great. I just had a few thoughts on this, and I'll try to keep them relatively brief. One thing is that as policymakers, I think we need to develop more of an awareness that to listen better to the people who are affected by our decisions and our policies. And so that's sort of an overarching thing that involves all sorts of things like people being involved, but more than that, it's more of the policymakers listening and hearing and seeing as valid what people are telling us. And sometimes that's in small things that you might not notice. Sometimes it's somebody shouting at you. So that's one thing. Go on about that a lot, but that's one thing. As far as getting down to the nuts and bolts, in general, San Dimas is on a pretty solid footing, but we do have a plan to even strengthen our budget a little bit more and make it more understandable. And also things like infrastructure in our streets and ways that we serve the community, we're working on improving those. This question made me think of one thing that I'll just bring up now because it's kind of a big issue, but I'll speak for a few seconds, and that's affordable housing. It's such a problem, and I'd like to make strides in that. State has not helped by passing some new housing laws that focus more on developers and market rate housing. We are trying to address that in a number of ways, but there's some things the city of San Dimas can do, and which I'm pushing, and I think we've got a little bit of traction on it. We'll see what happens in the next few months. But three things in particular. One thing is an attitude shift that small is okay. You don't have to live in a big house to be happy. As I found out when I was growing up, and the first house we had when we were first married and had kids. Secondly, wherever you have affordable housing already, protect it and don't let it be torn down, which we've succeeded in doing in a couple of places, but I'd like to make that just with our policies and regulations a little bit stronger. Lastly, or third, it's probably not last, but we are going to adopt an inclusionary zoning policy. What that is if you have a certain number of units, and I would say anything 10 and above, we don't know where we're going to land on these numbers. A certain percentage have to be affordable on the developers to make sure they're like forever affordable. I'd go for 15% or even higher for more units, but we'll see where we end up on that. But so affordable housing needs to be addressed, and it's not just talking about it, not just building more, because building more doesn't necessarily, as we've seen, I could give example after example, building more actually hurts some of the lower income neighborhoods and does not really make the resulting product affordable, even to the people who used to live on that particular lot.
That's good. Great. Greg, you want to take it?
I mean, can you go over it again? You're talking about changing or improving.
Yeah. What should we be looking for, right? What's coming? What's either changing? What do you see needs to be improved? Or what is it that you're hoping to hold on to?
Okay. What isn't changing in the schools? I mean, we'll start with COVID because that's where everything is. We get new guidance every week, sometimes during half the week. So as a parent, any parents out there, I'm sure you got the emails about your kids being exposed, and there's different. One week, this is the guidance of you staying home. The next week, it's totally different. None of it really makes sense. But we got to do what we got to do. It's very confusing for parents. The one thing I would love for the community to do is just give a little bit of grace to the teachers and staff out there. They're airing their concerns about something made decisions way above them to their kid's teacher or the secretary at the school. So what is really consistent that's working well is our staff. Our staff is still, if you know staff in Bonita, they really take pride in what they do for their classroom. They feel individually responsible for every single kid in that classroom. So giving them that little extra support, they can use it more now than ever. I work in a school and I see the lunchroom, and some of these teachers are almost at tears because of how they feel for their kids. Kids are, the kids actually do notice how much the teachers go out for them, and they really respond to that. So that's what's working well. Other changes, you probably heard we're moving to trustee areas as well. We're in the middle of that. We'll have we think we're gonna have a public hearing on the 22nd of this month. So you could have your input on this. Form maps on our website. Feel free to add some more, make some comments on that, because we're gonna make decisions. Hopefully there's comments out there. One thing John mentioned is, being responsible, talking to your constituents and people you represent. You're talking about vision. One vision I had since back in 2020 was really into the CTEs. I mean, college is amazing. I went to college, it worked for my family, but it's not for everybody. And I think those other trades should be valued just the same. And I had my own ideas of what I wanted to see for CTEs, but I wanted to listen to the kids, and what the kids want are medical pathways. So I'm not going to have my pet project when the kids want something else. So medical CTE, that's great. I've talked to Peter with this when I was campaigning. My whole big plan idea, which is going to take a lot of work to get there, is really offer those medical pathways, kind of something for the high school kids in both cities to work towards, like a phlebotomy license. I would love to see almost an extension program, maybe for our kids in that pathway. When they graduate for 2 years, we'll have like 1 or 2 new science labs where they can work on their CNN or phlebotomy license. And if they do well there, hopefully at Mount SAC, we could get some, I know your RM program is amazing there and is very competitive. Just kind of something for our students who've worked so hard in that area.
That's good. Real quick, Greg, for folks who may not know, what is a CTE?
CTE, and it's actually CTE month coming up, career and technical education. So a lot of our kids are college bound, a lot of our kids are military bound, but some kids want to do trades or they know what they want to do already in 10th grade. So they can focus on that, get ahead of the game. Because at Bonita, I think our mantra is we want to prepare kids to live their purpose. And if their purpose is I want to go into welding, I want to be in the medical profession, I want to be a cop or a firefighter, let's prepare you to be the best and most competitive when you get out of high school. So we want to keep all their options open so they're eligible to do everything. But if they want to focus on that, we're going to help you get there. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much, Greg. Peter, what should we be looking out for? I pay attention to Greg's meetings, right? So he's not going to be able to surprise me. John, sometimes not. But I'm going to be really honest. I don't know what's happening over at Mount SAC. I hear things. I hear the exciting things once they've happened, but I don't know what to be looking forwards to. So inform us. What should we be looking forwards to?
And thank you for that feedback. The key is that our constituents need to know what's happening, especially the fact that you are part of the Mount SAC district. And I think the board member Pilato said it best, and that is, COVID is really transforming things, and I think we're seeing that every day. The new normal is, working from home, or if you can, and there are some. I was in a meeting with the CEO of Metro today, and she was telling us that maybe public transit is not going to be at the levels that it used to be, but what amazing things that they're offering, that they're having to rethink, and that is giving free transit rides to community college students. So you currently now working with Foothill Transit, you can take a bus to Mount SAC at no cost. And as a student, and that was just recently implemented, and that's because COVID required those kind of changes. And as far as at Mount SAC, we're made up of 7 board members. We go all the way from the 605, our geographic areas from the 605 over to the 57, north of the 210, south to the 60, the Diamond Bar, Roland Heights area. So we have a very large district, which is why we have some 60,000 students. We have 7 board members. We're the first time we're a full board of color. There's 4 Latinos, including myself. I was born in Ecuador, and came to the United States when I was 10. And then our other 3 board members are Asian, and they represent we are a Hispanic serving institution where a majority of our students are Latinos. In fact, it's about nearly 80%. And we are a richly diverse college. And you will see that a lot of our programs are very culturally diverse, and diversity and inclusion is extremely hot topic, and I know it is at Bonita, and even at the city. So those are very important for us. And one of the things that we've done, for example, is that we've noticed that there is this unconscious bias by our faculty and our administrators, that when they look for candidates, as we're trying to improve diversity and inclusion, that they look for the pedigree first. And if they don't meet the pedigree, then they're discarded. So we as a board, as a policy, want to change that thinking into going, you know what, who is the best candidate? Who has the experience that really we're looking at? Okay, pedigree is important because we are a college, but we also need to really increase our numbers. And that has, while there has been change, is always difficult, right? And it is something that our faculty and our administration and our management, they are embracing. And as a fully diverse board, that is a very big priority for us. So, I mean, I think those are some of the things that we're seeing that are changing, as well as the fact that, we're continuing our fire academy. If you want to be a firefighter, we have programs for that. If you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle, if you want to learn, that's Pilato leads that class. If there's a, Board Member Pilato talked about our medical programs, including nursing. We even offer a bachelor's degree. I don't know if you know this, but the state of California changed the rules. We would never compete with a surrounding college like Cal Poly or any other public college. But the idea is that if that degree is not being offered in that area, we could offer a bachelor's. So you can actually get a bachelor's from Mount SAC, a 4-year degree, and that's something it's very rare, and it's only for a particular course, it's a subject matter. But we just recently applied for state approval to get a bachelor's in, it's we had a board meeting last night, and it was like it's a biological degree that I forgot because I'm not a science guy, but it's not hysterectomy. It was like hyster something a that you could get a degree in, and I'm embarrassed as a trustee, I should know this, but those again are some of the changes that we're seeing, and Mount SAC is. I got to see some of you on the parade route during the Christmas parade, and it was so fun to be more involved. And I think as trustees, we have to embed ourselves further in the communities that we serve. And just some of those examples. And I know that I was part of recently with the San Dimas Rotary Club, and we talked about Rising Scholars, our formerly incarcerated program. And so those are the kind of things that I think we're doing further to educate our community leaders, especially those of you who are here today.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for that. I say that I don't see what's coming as a confession, because I should, right? Like every time I hear what Mount SAC's doing, I'm like, yes, like this is a gap. Like and you just displayed it. You see a gap in the community and you fill that, you know? And I think that's kind of what each of your representations purpose is, right? Is to find what gap can your body seek to fill. And so taking that kind of step back, I would love to hear some big vision from you guys. What is not the day-to-day, not the programs, not the individual stuff, but what is just like the overall vision, hope, and dreams that you have for the communities that you're leading? And how can we be a part of it, right? Like I always share, like my big vision, hope, and dream is how do we depolarize and de-aggravate our communities, right? It's like the heartbeat of what I do. And I want to hear from you, what is the big vision that you have and what you hope? Greg touched on it a little bit already, those CTE courses that he's just like passionate about. And I know that there's a big vision reason as to why. And so I'm hoping to hear a little bit from any of you who would like to share a little bit more about that big vision you have.
I'm going to try.
Oh,
Go for
ahead,
it.
Peter.
Well, I was just going to say, vision statements should be really brief. And so I think when I think about this topic, and I think we would all agree in that, is that, you know, once you're a Mount SAC student, you should be able to leave wiser, physically stronger, and emotionally able to exceed your expectations. And I think that is the vision that Mount SAC has for its students. And regardless of race, color, creed, you know, we want to make your educational experience one that is going to contribute to society in a much greater way.
Yeah, besides that vision with the CTE, and that's going to cost a lot of money. Good things cost money, and that's going to be possibly a whole bond thing to make us state of the art. But my big vision behind it all is, you know, I live here in Laverne, close to San Dimas. I do a lot of community stuff there. I want all my future neighbors and community members to be the best people they can be, and it starts in schools. If I could give these kids, you know, the best that's out there, we're only going to have better communities. And if you look at the scoreboard now, I mean, Bonita's just rocking it. We scored #1 in all of California on reading. And the way they measure that, and if any educators out there, you learn to read in the first primary grades, like 3rd, 4th grade, that's where you switch to where you're reading to learn. So how they measure our reading is reading comprehension skills among Latino students in the 3rd grade. So that really core essence time. And we were #1 in about 300 districts in all of California. So honestly, if you just look at the scoreboard, we're doing some great things. And it's not just we're academically bound. We have well-rounded kids with CTE programs. We do high-level arts. You know, kids love performing at the BCA. Our sports teams are kicking butt. We're trying to have it all. We want to make them well-rounded kids. Because those are going to be my neighbors. I'm going to be an old guy walking down the street. And I want these kids to, you know, I want to have a great community, and that's where it's all going to end up. So you start young, and you go from there.
Love it. Love to hear it. What about you, Mr. Ebiner?
Yeah, well, it's hard to top what Peter and Greg said, but when I was thinking about this, I boiled it down to this can be any community, but I'll say San Dimas since that's what I represent. I'd like San Dimas, our city, to be a good place to live. And I emphasize that word good, sort of the deeper meaning. It's not like I had a good bowl of pasta this morning or that movie was good, but really good in that sense of the word that we embrace virtues. And there's a whole list of them, but you know, respect, tolerance, self-worth, and happiness, fun and frivolity, just things like that. And to make the community just a good place live, a good place. And I think in that sense, people feel comfortable, feel content. So that's the striving that I'd like to see us do. That's the kind of the underlying vision. Obviously, when you talk about vision, you're thinking, you know, what's way out there, and there are some of the nitty gritty things, and you know, again, there's some of the things that I'm interested in are I think add to that sense of community and sense of besides what we talked about already, listening and involvement and that. But some specific things is make San Dimas more bike friendly, more trees. I've already mentioned a good budget and affordable housing. Address the homeless problem. I'd like to create I proposed creating a new commission, the Arts and Culture Commission, which we do not have here, and I think would be one facet of life that we need to more emphasis on and get more involvement from the community. Vibrant downtown, and of course my long-term dream that I've expressed for 25 years is to have a youth center in San Dimas. So there's a lot of things like that. A good community, a friendly community, enjoyable. That's the vision. Reality is sometimes harsher, but we keep working through it.
So those visions are incredible. That's why you're here, right? What are some things, John, you mentioned having community involvement on some additional committees that might fuel that vision. What are some other things that us community members could do to help fuel that vision, right? We talked about, I mean, Greg, you mentioned like some of the CT tracks, like you just need bond money, right? Like you just need the grants to fund that. So each of your boards certainly could use financial support to bring those visions to fruition. What are some non-financial things that community members could do or not do in order to get us a step closer to that vision?
I can start here. We have a lot of ways. I saw the question up there. I didn't know who it was asking about how to get the community involved. We have tons of ways to jump in. We have a parent advisory council that meets, messages get sent to our superintendent, which get disseminated to us. If we want to even go more locally, every school has a PTA, a school site council, and just get in there and be involved with the school. And you can actually see the magic that happens with those teachers. Email us too. We're only gonna make decisions based off the knowledge we get. We get direction from here, we do our own research, but hearing from the community is probably the best way. And it doesn't have to be in person. I read all my emails, I respond to all my emails. I'm not gonna leave anyone hanging because I'm here to represent everybody. So I'll get back to you in 20 minutes or less. I'm gonna be like a pizza company. And that's just who I am, because I would want the same for me. So just ask your school how you can get involved. We'll give you tons of ways, probably more than you're going to want.
John, if I may, I'm going to jump in. For Mount SAC, you probably are wondering, like, how do we do that? Mount SAC is like, 15 minutes, down the what is that, 57? So the technically it's what, the 210? Is the 210 officially goes all the way down to the 10, by the way. Believe it or not, one of the things that we would love feedback on is early college schools. So with some, for example, another city, Pomona, reached out to me and said, hey, we would love to have an early college academy at one of our schools. That would mean that we would want some of our high school students to take dual enrollment, meaning that they would attend high school and also get credit at Mount SAC. And that would prepare them so they would start their sophomore, junior, and seniors years through this early college academy. And so we're discussing, we have a pilot program that's currently in place in West Covina called the West Covina Early College Academy. And we're going to be graduating our very first class there this coming June with about 85 students. And they're going to get their AA from Mount SAC, and there's their high school diploma, which is insane, right? So we want to maybe, this is where I need to talk to Board Member Pilato and see if we can do something like that in Bonita and have some of our students take part in that. And, there's financial arrangements involved, but that's a way. What do you guys, we would love to hear from the community about things like that. And the way we did in Pomona was a parent came to me and said, hey, let's start meeting. And so we got the superintendent involved, we got some board members involved, and so on and so forth. And that's how we got that going. But just to give you an idea of how you can get involved, whether it's, through Bonita at a PTA at Mount SAC, it's, reaching out to your local trustee, or if you know a professor who lives in your community or is your neighbor, those are great ways that we would love to get feedback.
That's great. And Amanda, I see your question, and I actually want to jump in about it right now because Greg, you mentioned a lot of parent involvement opportunities, and what about community members who care about the school district because of the same reason you said, right? These are our future neighbors, and it's just the future of our community and world. And Peter, I think that actually might be part of the reason why I haven't felt the pull to pay attention, is because I haven't yet bought into that. Like, I'm not a parent, I'm not a student, I'm not any of those things, but it is a community good. So is there that same kind of complication of getting involved if you aren't connected to Mount SAC in any formal way? Or is it really every community member has this, value to be involved there?
There we go. I think the connection generally is you're a Mountie. Our mascot is a Mountie. Is generally there's been that connection because you're a Mountie, or how to. We have student programs, whether they're choir, like we have a wonderful holiday choir event that takes place, always sells out. So it's those kind of things that draw people to the campus who've been around. But as far as and a community college would be very different than a unified school district, in the sense that you're dealing with children, and they're much different needs. And as a parent, and I'm a dad of 4 kids, most of them, 2 of them who are already adults, 2 of them are twins still in high school. We're still engaged in the campus. And so I think there's a much deeper local involvement with your school district, because these are minors. And then, when you come to our neck of the woods, you're officially dealing with adults. So the issues then change, and they're more adult driven, whether it's early career, early education, those kind of programs. That's generally how we get involved. But as a community, we're very different than Cal Poly, which is a Cal State system, which is not governed by community trustees, which is why, for example, when the COVID rules came down from the state, they were given to Bonita Unified School District. The governor said, right, everybody K through 12, you must do this, because there's a statewide run. And then the CSUs also is statewide run. UC, University of California, same thing. Community colleges, we were not given instructions because we are locally governed. And so we as a board felt it was very important for us to implement our COVID policies. So bottom line, we made the decision fairly early on to require all students with a time frame to get vaccinated. And if not, you then had a choice to get tested, and then or you could obviously do the exemptions, the medical and religious. So those were decisions we had to make as a board that we were not required to. We could have not done anything, but we felt out of an abundance of caution and health reasons, we made those decisions.
Got it. Okay, great. And then, John, what are some community involvement ways that you see?
Well, as Peter and Greg have said, it's so important for the community to be involved in shaping decisions. That's really the ideal and what we should strive for, community participation. Taking the San Dimas City Council as an example, we need to do better at letting people's voices be heard, especially during a pandemic. The public should be able to participate in non-traditional ways. And so that's why you've heard me over the months and years talk about Zoom meetings, participating by Zoom, phoning in if they have people have something to say, having meetings outside. We never did that, but I know I think it's Sierra Madre did that, which is great, having meetings outside. You know, just and even during the meetings, personally, I would lengthen the amount of time people get to speak. I would go back to where people talked on each item when the item came up, as opposed to having to fit everything they have to say in 3 minutes at the start of the meeting. So there's a lot of, but I think out of respect to the people who are affected by what we're doing, and I think to encourage them to participate, we should make it easier and show that we really care about what they have to say. The other thing I wanted to say on this point was that I wrote it down. Advocacy, we all are advocates for things, and that's so good. Advocacy is often asynchronous. And by that I mean affecting policy in local government often comes about by participating in things that on the surface may not readily seem to be directly involved. So joining the Historical Society or the Chamber of Commerce, Little League, chatting with people at school or at church, joining volunteer organizations, Meals on Wheels, things like that, are ways that you get to know people. Well, first of all, you're doing service, and that's great. But it's ways of getting to know people and seeing how things work. And all of that adds to your skills and your credibility, frankly, when you're talking to other decision makers in the community. So I think it's important it's not just going to the city council and telling them what you think, it's doing these other things and talking to your neighbors and small groups and small organizations. And the Bonita Democratic Council is a good example.
I love that. I love that there's the opportunity to get involved in all of those things that are asynchronous, that can fit with the fact that you have a 2-year-old and want to be on Zoom, or can fit with the fact that you want to be involved in this aspect of life, whether it's arts and culture or whether it's transportation and bike lanes and things like that, you know, rather than our addresses being put on blast before commentary. I think our committee of involvement should be the first thing you say. Hi, my name is Brittany Allison, and this is what I do in the city of Laverne. This is why my opinion is being shared now. I'm like 80% joking. So we're going to jump to a couple of the questions from your audience members, and then wrap up with my question about young people that you already know is coming. Matt asked, and I think this is really, really cool and interesting. Peter, is there any opportunity that you see for community colleges taking part in affordable housing? As John stated, that's a challenge that every city is being faced with right now. Is that something that could be on the docket for community colleges?
Indeed, it is. Great question, Mr. Lyons. There is a bill that and the state legislature that would grant the opportunity for community colleges to build dorms. And Mount SAC would be a prime location because of our location and the large property that we have locations where we could conceivably build some dorms. Currently, we do have an agreement with Cal Poly Pomona next door, where if we have some students, we can actually use a few of the dorms from Cal Poly if those are available, and there's a reciprocal agreement where our students then pay Cal Poly. But what that tells us is that there's a need for housing for our students. And so that conceivably, if this bill is advances, there's been some discussion in the last legislative session as well, that would be amazing to see, some dorms at Mount SAC or other campuses.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a really great example of how the community has a vested interest in the happenings of Mount SAC, right? Because it's not just about classes here. Like affordable housing is something that everybody's paying attention to. Everybody's complaining about at city council meetings. Maybe they would be interested in knowing that there is this opportunity on the horizon as well. I love that. And Chris, always coming in with the questions. So I'm going to give you guys a moment to pause and think about this. For each of your populations, how well do you disaggregate your data in ways that examine intersectionality, gaps, and potential opportunities?
Well, we do that, I think, in individual school level and the overall district level. That's some of the big targets. Bonita, I think everyone knows our main goal is 80-70. If you haven't heard that, you probably have never seen one of our meetings. We always talk about that. We're 80% and 80% in ELA, 70% in math. And it's not just 80-70, but for each individual subgroup we're looking at. So race, special ed, ELL, every single different area. I mean, for individual schools, like I see a dad of a San Dimas Saint right here. San Dimas is doing very intentionally, they're doing that with concerns that happened in the past. The principal is really being proactive in trying to see where those gaps are, see how they can make it a more inclusive, a better space. So, I mean, that's part of every school's goal is to look at that. And that's something that has been asked of them, but also at an overall district level. And one thing I forgot to say, you're asking about new things coming up, and I don't know why I forgot this. Just I'll give you 30 seconds. 4-year-olds going to school, universal TK. That's something that we're going to just go full force into. Most school districts are they have to phase in very slowly. We don't care. We're just going to try to pop it in every school. So that's going to be something big for our community. We're going to be a leader in that. Usually we look and we wait to see what works, what doesn't work. But for this is something I have a huge passion about. I was on state council of education. My first thing was early childhood education. So we're going to go full force. Hopefully you'll see that next school year. And we're going to be rocking it before everyone else does.
Me and Isabel are so happy about that. My 2-year-old tries to smuggle himself into his big sister's kindergarten class about twice a week. So that's really exciting. And real quick, Peter, when is that bill coming up? I saw that question in the chat, and I do want to clarify that about affordable housing.
Isabel always asks the best questions. I don't know, but I can find out and get back to you, Isabel. Okay.
Okay, great. And I will also say, if I don't get to all of the questions, I'm going to ask Greg, John, and Peter at your convenience. Can you drop your emails in the chat box? I know folks should be able to Google them, and most of us here might already have you. But whatever email you would like us to contact you on, go ahead and put that in the chat box. So if we don't get your question answered today, you can contact these fine gentlemen. And I'm sure they will be eager to answer your questions. So I also saw the question, and I think it was asked directly about Mount SAC, but I think it's notable for each of your populations that you represent. How are the numbers looking as far as enrollment? I mean, Greg, you've certainly been faced with many threats of de-enrollment or mass de-enrollment in the face of various policies that you may not have any power or control over. What is enrollment looking like for BUSD? What's enrollment been looking like for Mount SAC, especially did they have that dip that a lot of community colleges experienced during COVID? And then, I mean, John, your question wouldn't be about enrollment, but population size. Are more people moving in or moving out to San Diego? Greg, you want to hit it first?
Sure. I mean, all of California school districts are dropping in enrollment. We think we're lost just under 500, which we estimated, or around there. We estimated a bigger amount. We're very conservative with our numbers. I don't really think it's any of the COVID things, because people have been saying they're going to leave California for years. I think it happened before that. I think a lot of people are more doing it because of the housing prices is really moving them out. So the people who move into Laverne and San Dimas, young families can't afford these home prices. So that's where it's difficult. So a lot of people going to Idaho, I hear, and whatnot. I think that's a bigger impact than some of our policies. Yeah, I know from what I heard from some of the ad hoc meetings, we're looking at building more housing in Laverne. I heard there's a huge tract that City Council was talking about around the railroad tracks. And they would promise me that every family would have 2 kids that moved in. So we'll get our numbers back up. But it's just tough times. But we budget for that, so we make sure it doesn't impact the kids we do
Right.
As far as real fast with us, Mount SAC, we lost 8% enrollment due to, but thank God we were able to quickly pivot, and we continue to pivot to online learning. And again, the other issue is affordability of internet service for our students, and Mount SAC offers those kind of subsidies for anyone who wants to get Spectrum or any other kind of internet services. And then we also offer laptops, so just like the school district does.
And we expect population to increase. I mean, we're going to build over 1,200 new units in the next 10 years. So we're not building them, but somebody will build them, and we're letting them build them. So there'll be a lot of people, and hopefully some of them are, in the age range where they might help Greg and Peter.
Yeah. And speaking of students and young people, my last question for each of you is I think we can't look forward in our community. We can't look forward locally if we're not thinking about young people, because they are what's forward. So if each of you could share a bit of what lessons you learn from young people, because I think that's probably what's going to take us forward. But then also, what lessons do you hope that we are imparting on young people who are, the future of our communities?
Well, I guess I can start. I've always loved listening to everybody, but especially to young people, because sometimes the ideas are just fresher, and sometimes they're just more passionate. So it's important that we listen, and we actually hear and validate what they're telling us. Validate that what they're telling us is is a real thing. I'm impressed by young people, especially recently. I don't know what you want to call young. For me, almost everybody's young. So I would, but with high school students, college students, when we had the demonstrations around the George Floyd killing and racial justice protests or showing up, whatever you want to call it. I was impressed at how many young people were there and were involved in that time. As far as lessons to pass on, and by the way, we on the Parks and Rec Commission, which I'm the liaison to, we love taking input from people who are actually using the facilities. Like somebody came forward recently and wanted lights at the skate park, or even the skate park itself was a outgrowth of student involvement or youth involvement. As far as lessons to pass on, I found that it's exciting to be around political stuff, both on the inside and the outside, and that you can actually have an effect if you are determined and stick with it. One bit of advice is that sometimes we see ourselves, or we are political or social justice warriors, and we get very focused on the goal and the thing we're trying to achieve. And similar to what I said before, it's important to cultivate an awareness and to learn about the bigger picture. So, whether it's art, agriculture, or architecture, and other types of subjects, it's important to know about these things and learn about them and respect them, because they're part of what is the bigger society, the whole entire society that is the environment for what is going to be happening going forward. So I feel that that is again, these other ways of arriving at the social justice that we want to achieve.
I love it. I love that, John. And actually, I'm glad you talked a little bit about advice. And I was going to sneak in Matt's question. As the most tenured representative on this panel, is there advice that you would give to newly elected representatives or future aspiring representatives, the young people we're talking about right now?
A couple pieces of advice, and of course we have an election coming up, and that's well, I don't know what's equal or what's first, but also one thing is care about the job you are about to do. So you don't have to come in blazing, all guns firing, and here's all my things I wanted, but you really need to be. It's not just a place to show up and click off a box. Is another thing I did in service to my community. I think you have to have at least a little bit of a point of view that you bring to the council, and that the community can rely on you to carry for them. Work with your colleagues. That's very important, to collaborate even when you don't disagree with them all the time, and welcome their good ideas, which nobody's got all good ideas or all bad ideas. Welcome the good ideas, and listen to your constituents, and really try to listen from top to bottom, side to side, meaning everybody, because there's the people that want to be involved and you're going to hear about from all the time. Then there's those people that just want to stay home and live in peace and don't want to get involved at all. But I found that, knocking on a few doors just to say, well, how's it going? And, what do you think about the city? And it's like, sometimes you'll find that people who are living their quiet, peaceful lives have opinions about what you're doing also. So there's a couple things.
Great. Thanks for that, John. Greg or Peter, lessons to take or lessons to give to our young people?
Let me go before Peter. He's going to totally outshine me. That guy could talk. For me, honestly, it's kind of a reciprocal message between me and the kids. What I learned from them is just have fun. I work in elementary school. I'll go play recess with the kids, and I'll see them do project-based learning. They want to have fun. The older kids, they want to do what they like. And I say it back to them, I have fun with you. You'd have fun, which is really doing what your passion is. Whatever you want to do, go for it. If you really love it, you're going to be the best in it. And if you're the best in it, the world opens up for you. I didn't get the best support choosing psychology as a major, but it was my passion. I stuck with it, and that's what I do now. I love what I do. And life's too short to live unhappy, so just go have fun.
And just to add on that, I think it's timely with Monday being MLK Day. And, when you think of MLK, you think of service, and his efforts were really intended to be to lift up those, to be a voice to those who are voiceless. And I know for a fact that Councilman Ebiner and Board Member Pilato and I all share that same passion, that our job is to be a voice to those who can't have a voice. And I very much that is a passion of mine, and is deep in my heart to lift up, like I said, with this Rising Scholars Program is just one example. But I think the message is also what I've heard from kids is like, so like, I'm supposed to go to Mount SAC, but like, how do I get a job? How do I make money from that? And so, one of the things that we did this year, another one, and I can't believe I forgot it, but for the very first time in our 75-year history, we passed a project labor agreement. And I don't know if you know what that is, but that is a union-backed program, because we have a $1 billion building program where we're modernizing our campus to make it more relevant for our students so that we can provide even more academic programs. And so with that, we need to train. And so we're working with our trades, with unions, and we're going to create a pathway so that they can be apprentices while they're students and bring them into the trades, and they could become and earn living wages that would give them a successful career and contributing members of our society in an amazing way. And that's what I heard from our students. And we were we have been fighting to try to do this for many years, and we were able to successfully do that this year. And so I think that's a huge thing that I was able to go back to some of our students and let them know. And that's what our young people are asking.
Yeah, that is cool. Thank you so much. So I am so thankful for the three of you all for representing our communities and joining this conversation. I know that folks were so happy to have some of their questions answered. They did all put their email in the chat. So take that down, and any other questions that you have, please contact them, because answering your email is their job. Because that's what they got elected for, right? They're representing us. And so tell your friends, right? Tell your neighbors.
We have to do the pizza thing, answer within 20 minutes, just like Board Member Pilato said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to see that on your next campaign poster. 20 minutes or it's free, right? Isn't that what it is? So yes, I really do. I really am thankful for the representatives that each of you are. And thank you for joining this call. If you have any last words to share with our membership that is on the call now or will be watching later, you may share those words now and then either sign off or join us for our membership meeting. Up to you. John, do you want to go first with any final words?
Sure. Well, thanks a lot for having us here today. It's gone really well. I didn't think I was going to have enough to say, but so I'm sorry if I took a little bit too much time, but I'll try to make it brief at the end here. The idea, I'd say, is to behind governing and just in life in general, I would say, is to strive for the ideal, even if it seems a bit out of reach. And the ideal in governing, and for me anyway, is an enlightened democracy. And by enlightened, I mean that every individual is aware of things, engaged in learning more about them, willing to listen and to offer opinions, not being shy about that, and then making decisions based on out of respect and empathy. So those are a couple things that came to mind anyway. I'm sure there's lots more to be said about that. But the last thing I'll say is that yesterday I was reading about Elvis Costello. He's one of the great musicians and singer-songwriters in the new wave of music that started in the 1970s, still performing, by the way. And he has this great song that I've always liked, always been my favorite. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? And if you think about those, peace, love, understanding, they're important to have a good society. And it's just something to think about. Thanks a lot.
I don't have too much of a closing. People who know me, I'm very much to the point, low verbiage kind of guy. I just do my thinking, make decisions, and run with it. But honestly, for my closing, change really only comes to intentional actions. So you can't just hope as a strategy. It's like you really got to put the effort. And if you guys have things that you're concerned about or you want to see, best way is just to let us know. Email all of us. We'll get back to you. We're only going to consider things that we hear about in the community. I'm a voice. I'm not the voice. We're all a voice. I'm just one that represents you guys. So reach out to us. And thank you for having me. It's great to see all these familiar faces again. It's kind of happy to be back here.
And my last words are just simply thank you. thank you so much for the kind and thoughtful invitation. And what an honor to be part of this panel with Greg and John and each one of you. And I know many of you here. And so we have gone way over. So I apologize that we did that. But I just wanted to say it's great to see Matt Lyons, Mr. President, and Brittany. Thank you so much for doing such a great job in moderating. And just thanks again.
Thank you, thank you. And going over is always on me. I apologize to Matt every single week. I say, sorry, we talk too much. Let's do our membership meeting real fast. So we'll go ahead and sign off on looking forward locally. And thank you once more for joining us. Thanks, everybody.